The strikes carried out by the U.S. and Iran have put the ceasefire and the Memorandum of Understanding signed last month in doubt. This is how events have unfolded. The escalation began on Monday when the Revolutionary Guard struck 3 commercial vessels off the coast of Oman. The following day, the U.S. said it carried out retaliatory strikes on Iranian military targets. Tehran responded with missile and drone attacks on U.S. bases across the Gulf. On Wednesday, President Donald Trump told reporters the ceasefire was over. His announcement rattled markets and oil prices increased. And as we've been reporting, overnight, Iran's Revolutionary Guard announced the closure of the Strait of Hormuz after it targeted a container ship, setting off the latest round of attacks. Kenneth Katzman is a senior fellow at the Soufan Center and a former senior analyst on Iran with the US Congressional Research Service. And he joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Kenneth, thanks for being with us here on Al Jazeera. Look, as we've been reporting, at a time when we keep hearing that both Iran and the U.S. do not want to go back to full-blown war, these past several hours, we're seeing tensions ramp up yet again. What, from your perspective, to make of this latest escalation, and where do things go from here?
Thank you for having me again. I read it, as I said before, earlier today, that the U.S. has a major problem on its hands here. Mr. Trump understood from the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, that the strait would be completely open. And it turns out that the IRGC, and I'm naming them specifically, or key commanders there, read it completely differently, that they insist on controlling the strait. Not only that, but gaining revenge for the killing of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. They want to ensure the U.S. never attacks Iran again. They want to exact revenge against the U.S. for the war, as the Supreme Leader, who there's no evidence he's alive, but he issued a statement today, or his office issued a statement, or people around him issued a statement that calling for revenge. And so it seems that there's a dedicated team of former commanders and former commanders in the IRGC and other hardliners that insist on prosecuting the war further beyond what the civilian elected leadership would like to pursue. They want a deal. They want this to end.
Kenneth, the U.S. wants Iran to publicly commit to fully opening the Strait of Hormuz. They've said that time and time again. Iran, just hours ago, said that it was closing it again. Considering the leverage that Iran has right now when it comes to the strait, is it even realistic for the U.S. to demand this at this point? Or if negotiations do indeed proceed, is this a point that the U.S. will have to eventually concede?
Well, unfortunately, the U.S. is not going to concede it because it cannot concede it. It's a vital interest of the United States that the strait remain open. The United States is not going to concede it. So if the hardline factions in Iran continue to press this point, unfortunately, we're going to probably see very substantial escalation by the United States. I think, as I said earlier today, Bandar Abbas has been hit very hard three times this week, right? Bushehr is being hit hard. Chabahar. I mean, the population of these cities is going to start leaving. They're not going to be staying. And then the regime is going to have a huge problem on its hands. And so I think the civilian leadership, Mr. Pezeshkian, Mr. Kalibaf, they are going to start putting pressure on the IRGC to stand down and accept some negotiated settlement involving Oman, Iran, and the U.S.
Kenneth, from your perspective, what needs to happen in order to try to get things back on track diplomatically? Or at this stage, can that even happen?
I think it's going to be tough. Again, I'm forecasting major U.S. escalation. I mean, Tuesday night, the U.S. hit 80 targets. The next night, 90 targets. Today, 140 targets. The targets were expanded today to petrochemical plants. There was a bridge hit the other day. Again, I believe these cities are going to be depopulated. Bandar Abbas is probably going to start looking like Gaza pretty soon. No civilian. U.S. will not target civilians. I'm not saying that. But this is going to escalate severely unless the IRGC backs down and agrees to what the civilian leadership negotiated.
All right. Kenneth Katzman, senior fellow at the Soufan Center and a former senior analyst on Iran with the US Congressional Research Service. Thanks so much for being with us here on Al Jazeera. We appreciate it.